Welcome back to the Midnight Hoot Show, and today we are, of course, going to review Susan's War.
Spheres of Influence, of course, continues on from the Short Trip Adventure, of course, link to that review in the description below. Of course, All Hands on Deck, where we see Susan, of course, get into a TARDIS and head off to Gallifrey to fight in the Time War. Of course, her trip to Gallifrey doesn't go entirely well. There's, of course, some, Dalek interference there, and they soon decide that they should send Susan on a diplomatic mission to, of course, the Sensphere, featuring, of course, the Centurites, a very famous alien species, of course, from the first Doctor era, so it was great to hear them again, but that's not the only returning character in this episode. Of course, Ian Chesterton returns. I think it was a fantastic idea for Big Finish to include, of course, Ian, and you do get a little nod to Barbara, which I thought was really cool, and it's kind of interesting to hear his kind of, he's getting back into this kind of world that he left about 50 years ago. So it's kind of he's kind of reacting like, wow, I'm back. And it's just really cool to hear him kind of, reunite with Susan. I thought that was a really awesome little thing. Yeah, I really enjoyed this first story. I thought it was a great start to this box set. Of course, hearing Ian and Susan again, that was just awesome. And I think it was a great idea to kind of, include, the Sensorites again. Because, they haven't really made much of a reappearance too much. So I think they're definitely, you can kind of see how much of an ally they can be for the Time War. And I think it was a great idea to do this because you can kind of bring back elements of course, the 60s era of Doctor Who. Because, of course, they have Susan, you can mix it with the Time War. And you also really get to see a lot about Susan in this story, because this is Susan on her own. So you get to really see, her now have to deal with a lot of situations, because there's no doctor. This is her adventure, her mission, everything in order, and be able to, of course, save it. So, yeah, this was a great start to the box. The Uncertain Shore was, of course, a really good story. Of course, again, we have another little reappearance of a classic villain, of course, the Ogrons. But they're Robo-Ties. Yes, Robo-Ogrons. And it's kind of interesting how the robo-technology that the Daleks have in this story, how much it affects the Ogrons, because they become a little bit different in this story than, of course, their normal Ogrons, because, of course, they're now under the influence of that, Dalek technology. This story finds Susan going to, of course, Florana, basically where they're trying to find a spy. I will say, out of any story in this box set, I enjoy this one the least. I don't know why. I've listened to this one twice, and I just really couldn't get into it. I definitely think it had everything you really want in a story, though. It had, of course, the Daleks and, of course, Ogrons. So there was a lot of great stuff in there, but it's just one of those stories that just really didn't captivate me too much. But sometimes you're always going to get that in a box set. And, of course, episode 2 was unfortunately that one, which is kind of a shame, definitely after the first story was so great. Episode 3, on the other hand, of course, Assets of War, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed how they kind of explored, a lot more of Susan, her telepathic ability, and really who she is as a character. And you get to really see how well she interacts with, creatures and people. And you kind of see how she's a little bit different to these other Gallifreyans fighting the Time War. Of course, she hasn't been involved in the Time War as long as they have, but she's also been, on Earth a lot. And she has a different experience. And I really think the story does a really good job exploring that. The story involves, of course, a new special weapons project that the Gallifreyans are testing to be used in the Time War. Now, of course, they think Susan is perfect for this, of course, because of her special ability. And, of course, this involves the Orvik. And it's kind of really interesting with this one. Of course, Susan's special ability, she can really kind of see what's going on, how these creatures are reacting to what the Gallifreyans are doing with it. And you can really start to see how Susan is a lot different than a lot of these other Time Lords. And she, of course, reacts differently to this. I really enjoyed the side characters in this story, and everything about the story I thought was really good. Now, of course, I probably can bet episode 4, the Shordic intervention, was probably the one a lot of people were excited, probably besides episode 1, because, of course, it had the 8th Doctor involved. Now, we all know Susan and the 8th Doctor's last few encounters, they weren't always the greatest. Of course, Alex, and then, he's trying to prevent her from going to the war. So it was definitely a really kind of cool chance for Big Finish to really explore that again. And, kind of see the Doctor run into Susan again. And you really get to see him like, Susan, what are you doing? Get out, come with me, travel around. We don't have to deal with this war. And, and I kind of really, you get to see again, this is, to Susan, this is her choice. she's helping the Time Lords stop the Daleks from winning this war. So whatever, she doesn't want what happened to Earth again. She wants to stop the Daleks in a way, once and for all. So basically what happens on the Earth doesn't happen again. So this story involves Susan, of course, being sent to 1963 Earth, where, of course, you know, the Doctor and her are currently there. She's, of course, in Coal Hill, and, you know, they're basically there. So this is a lot of, you know, chance to kind of, you could accidentally mess the timeline up. And, of course, Susan really shouldn't be there because, you know, Earth is basically a time-locked planet where you can't really mess with it, right? You know, you can't mess with their events. But basically, what they want is, of course, something the Doctor left there before he, of course, left Earth again, and, of course, the unearthly child. Now, of course, the Daleks are involved with this. Of course, you know, in a way, Susan was a little bit tricked into going here, because, of course, the Daleks, and you, of course, see the Robomen again. I really like how the Robomen have been really modernized in a way. You know, it's not the headpiece, it's actually like a chip. I think that's a really cool way, and you wouldn't really be able to tell if anyone's Roboman again, which I think is really cool. Now, of course, Paul McGann's 8th Doctor is in the story, and he does a fantastic performance. And it was just great hearing him with Susan again. And you know, he's really just trying to stay on the sideline of everything. And you can really see that again. He doesn't really want Susan to fight in this war, and that continues on in the story. But it was just great to hear them, you know, reunited and have another adventure. And it was a great story. So overall, I really enjoyed this box set. Carole Ann Ford does, of course, an amazing performance as Susan. I really like how this box set, you know, it's combining a lot of her now experiences she had, of course, on Earth and her adventures with the Doctor, and it really develops her a little bit more, and you really get to see how she reacts to situations and how she deals with things. And I think, you know, it's really a great story in that, and it's very interesting seeing, you know, Susan being involved in the Time War and how much that does actually kind of bother the Doctor. He doesn't want it. He's kind of really wants Susan to be, of course, really, you know, safe. He wants her out of the events. And he's really trying everything he can not to make her get involved. But unfortunately, she's now involved. I really would actually see some more adventures with Susan in the Time War. This box set really had it all. It had, you know, of course, some Daleks in the background, Ogrons, and of course the Centrites, and they even brought Ian Chesterton back. This really feels like a great blending of classic Who and, of course, new Who with, of course, the Time War. It just combines all those elements into a really great box set, and I really highly recommend it. So that's it for tonight. I really hope you guys enjoyed this review. And of course, if you've listened to this box set, tell me your guys' thoughts in the comments below. And I'll, of course, see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.